Hey, I'd like to thank you all for being here today. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. I appreciate that. I got a question for all of you. What does it take to be successful? It's a loaded question because there's obviously a lot of factors involved in this. I'm here today to talk about a few subtle factors that can really make the difference, and they're key to being excellent and they're key to being successful. So I'm going to start off with some quotes because there's been some wise people who've talked about this long before I ever could have. Enthusiasm is one of the most powerful engines of success. When you do a thing, do it with all your might. Put your whole soul into it. Stamp it with your own personality. Be active, be energetic, be enthusiastic and faithful, and you will accomplish your object. Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. This is a quote that I like to live my life by, and if you're going to walk away with anything from today's talk, this is it. This is it right here. What does it mean? Simply put, if you want to be excellent in a field, if you want to rise to the top, you have to be enthusiastic about it. A lot of people make a lot of decisions in our lives. A lot of people make decisions for us. When coming to the question of, what are you going to study? What are you going to do as your career? People make the choice to take the safe option, or they go for the lucrative option, as opposed to pursuing their passions. They do this because they think, oh, it's much easier to be successful in a lucrative field. Is it really? Is that actually true? Consider two people. One person, is doing a job because, hey, their parents said this was a good idea, said, hey, you go become a chartered accountant. That's what you should do. There's lots of money in that. So they go, they do it, they get there, they go to work 9 to 5, 5 o'clock, out the door, want to forget everything they just did. Work is separate from everything else. They don't care about it. It is just a job. Then there's Johnny Enthusiasm. Johnny Enthusiasm loves accounting. Oh yeah, he loves pulling out his notebook and adding up numbers or whatever accountants do. 5 o'clock comes. Johnny Enthusiasm goes home, and he's reading up on accounting. He's learning different methods. He's studying for exams. He's putting extra time into it. Some days he'll work late. No one's asking him to work late, but he does it because he's enthusiastic about it. He's passionate about it. He spends his weekends on this. I want to ask you a question. Who's going to be more successful? The answer is obvious. Johnny Enthusiasm. You have a much better chance of being successful at anything if you're enthusiastic about it, if you care about it. So some people say, well, you know what? Still, the guy who doesn't really care, he's an accountant. It's a big field. He'll be better off. Really? Really? Consider this. You are almost always going to be better off being in the 1% of a field that may not be considered lucrative as opposed to being average in the lucrative field. And if you're not enthusiastic about something, you are destined to be average or you're destined to be bad at it. While if you are enthusiastic, you have a shot to be the best because you cannot be the best without enthusiasm. It's a very important lesson that is often forgotten. So as we think about this, when you're making your decisions, don't be a hostage to what people are expecting of you. Make decisions, follow your passions, follow your heart. It's essential to keep this in mind. If you don't do this, you are destined to a life of misery. That sounds awful. Do you actually want that? The other thing is, even if you're going to go and be average in that field, you owe it to yourself to follow your enthusiasm. You owe it to yourself to follow your passion. Life is too short to spend 40 hours a week doing something you're not enthusiastic about. Please remember that. The next thing I want to talk about. There are two ways to compete in this world. You can drag your opponent down, or you can rise above them. Which is better for society in the long run? We're talking about competition here. Competition has become a dirty word for a lot of people because they see competition only from one mind frame. They see the version where everyone's trying to drag someone down. Competition means I win, You lose, I kick dirt on you. Well, that's not the only way you can compete. Unfortunately, because of this negative view of competition, it's being discouraged at a young age. Young people are being put into schools where competition isn't a good thing. We don't keep score in sports. Everyone's a winner. Unfortunately, that's not true. There are winners, there are losers. Competition is something that's very important and cannot be marginalized. There's been numerous studies on this, but it's been discovered that high school students who engage in competitive realms, typically high school sports, some cool kids do high school robotics, but we all can't be that awesome. The ones who do these sports end up being more successful in university and going forward. Why is that? Well, there's a lot of factors that come into play. They learn about teamwork, they learn some people skills, but they learn one very valuable skill that is not taught in most places. They learn how to compete. Competition is actually a skill, because when you learn how to compete, you are learning about expending maximal effort, rising above your opponent, and doing whatever it takes, determination and iteration, never giving up. Why is competition important to your lives? Consider this. You're all competing, all the time. Remember when you were in high school? You wanted to get into the best schools? There was a limited amount of spots. You were competing. Going for a job? There was an article that came up on Twitter today from NPR. Over 50% of American university graduates are working in fields such as waiting tables, janitorial, or other unskilled jobs. Only half were getting jobs that they wanted in their fields. How do you get those jobs? You are competing for them. And those kids who've learned how to compete in the right way by rising above their competition and not stooping down to those levels, they're the ones that are excelling. They're the ones that are getting those jobs. So, let's talk about this, competing the right way, competing the wrong way. There's two types of people in this world. There's some people who are inspired by excellence, and there are other people who are simply put off by it. Take a look at an example. Every one of you, you've been to school. You remember what it was like. There was that one girl with the highest marks. You didn't understand how she got those marks, but she always had the highest average and whatever. How did your friends treat her? How did you treat her? Maybe there were some people who were like, oh, wow, I want to be like that. But most people were probably like, meh, I doubt she has any friends. Does she ever go out? Is she ever going to find a boyfriend? This is the way that we treat excellence. That is the absolute wrong way. Think of Mr. Charming, Mr. Popular. He's probably dumb. Look at this. The people who are going to be successful are the ones who want to compete and say, hey, look at Johnny Popular. Look at Maria Brain. Look at them. I want to be like her. I want to be like him. I want to find out how they do it. I want to work with them to be like that. And almost even better than that is I want to excel past them. I don't necessarily want to just copy the best. I want to be better than the best. In the words of Ric Flair, to be the man, you have to beat the man. I never thought I would be doing a speech on positive competition and bringing in the world of wrestling, but hey, when you can bring in Ric Flair, you just got it. Woo! Seriously though, there's a right way to compete and there's a wrong way to compete. And competing the right way, you can rise above. Always try and be better. Don't drag someone down. And this doesn't just apply to individuals. Oh, this applies to companies. This applies to corporations. I think the smartphone industry could learn a thing or two. Instead of suing each other over stupid and pointless things, they could be working together to spread the market, to grow the market. John Abley, the quote, he's the founder of Boston Scientific, a huge pharmaceutical company. And he gave this speech at a corporate retreat where he was talking to people about ethical and cooperative competition within the world of business and how it makes our society better. The final thing I want to talk about. Gentlemen, we are going to relentlessly chase perfection, knowing full well we will not catch it, because nothing is perfect. But we are going to relentlessly chase it, because in the process, we will catch excellence. I am not remotely interested in just being good. Perfectionism is a dangerous concept. a lot of people fall victim to perfectionism. Why? Perfection does not exist. Chasing perfection, in some ways, can be like chasing a unicorn. You are not going to find it. However, if you go on a journey across the world to try and find a unicorn, you're going to find a lot of other freaking awesome things, but not a unicorn. If you chase perfection, you will catch excellence along the way. You always need to aim high. You always need to think big. Big goals and big dreams. Too often people see limits that are defined for them and they don't go after things. But unless you are trying to be the best, you will have no shot at being excellent. So how do you get to that point? How do you get to that point where you're on your journey to perfection that you find excellence? Well, you will be motivated by the enthusiasm you have for your passion. You will compete ethically, rising above the best in your field, always striving to top them. And you will constantly chase perfection, knowing well that if you do it, you will catch excellence along the way. The final quote from the greatest of all time: limits, like fears, are often just an illusion. Every day of your life, people are telling you what you cannot do. They're constructing false limits around you. You become afraid of those. But those limits are nothing but an illusion. You cannot fall victim to them. You should not listen to the person who says, you should do this because this is what everyone else like you does. Be your own person, follow your passion, compete ethically, and chase perfection knowing you'll catch excellence. I want to thank all of you for listening today, and remember one thing. Excellence can happen. It's within you. Thank you.